Hello, thank you for tuning back in with my next video. This one on the Caucus Convention system and a piece of legislation that was passed back in 2000, some years back in 2016. I think called SB 54, and the solution of how people like myself can get elected to drain the Utah swamp. Um, but let me first begin with explaining the system of government that the founders gave us. And, they established a republic. In fact, I can go into all sorts of proofs of how it is my opinion that John Adams was a co-father, as it were, in the U.S. Constitution. But that's opinion. That's my opinion. That he was also a father of the Constitution, much like James Madison. But John Adams also wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, which I'll get to in a little bit in this video. The first draft before it's changed many times throughout the years. But anyway, John Adams, along with so many of the founders, studied the words of Cicero and Plato. In fact, in Plato's Republic, it talks about, in fact, Plato's Republic, it talks about when establishing the best form of a republic to last throughout the ages is to insert 7 negatives. 7 negatives meaning 7 checks. If you fast forward, if you look at what the founders gave us, they gave us 9 checks. I know that's conflictory to what the public school system teaches, but that's the truth. The 3 branches are the federal government, which the states created, so the states are being the second, which the people create the states, which are the third branch of government. The federal government has the 3 branches that the schools teach: executive, judicial, legislative. The states have the same 3 branches. Then you have the people that we have the right to petition, the right to protest, the right to vote the bums in and out, the county sheriff to enforce the Constitution. The county sheriff is the highest law enforcement throughout all the land, and I'll cover that in the next video, which will be on guns. And most importantly, regarding the judicial, the right to be to serve as a juror and jury nullification, because it's the juries that decide the fate of the accused, not the judge. The judge just issues the punishment. Now, let me go a little bit further. In the original Massachusetts Constitution that John Adams wrote, as well as many other state constitutions that John had a hand in influencing the creation thereof, it would begin with the people electing representatives. And then those representatives elect the next body of government, the next body of government, the next body of government, all the way up to the governor. In fact, in the Massachusetts Constitution, they call for annual elections, which I kind of like the idea. That reduces the tyranny that comes and goes, especially if it's a part-time legislature. Jumping forward in time, for years, Utah has had what's called the Caucus Convention system, not designated only for the Republican Party, but all the political parties in Utah, for the most part, utilizes this Caucus Convention system, which entails the people gather together every 2 years to elect delegates, precinct chairs, to go forth and elect the party nominee for either the primary or the general election. And this process does work. However, yes, it was failing the last few years before they passed SB 54. Not because the system is flawed. No, it's because of the corruption within the Utah swamp within the Republican Party. Now you have the Utah swamp that catered to the whims of the mob rule mentality and passed what's called passed legislation called SB 54. It was throughout the headlines of the Republican Party suing the state of Utah, the Utah State Supreme Court, etc., etc. Well, that's fine and dandy to sue. I support the effort, but it's fruitless when you have the Utah swamp controlling the courts, the executive, the judicial, the legislative, as well as the party itself. That's why I've always believed, since the passing of that unconstitutional law, the best solution is the complete repeal of SB 54. And now, recently, last few months, U.S. Senator Mike Lee has been preaching the same thing. We must repeal SB 54. So my promise to you today is to sign legislation that completely repeals SB 54 and restores the Caucus Convention system. Those avenues we could do to make elections more fair for all, without going down the path of pure, straight democracy, which is mob rule, which is the beginnings of socialism. And let me explain why it's the beginnings of socialism. Because occasionally mob rule could be a good thing, especially when it comes to tax protests. But most of the time, 95% of the time, 99% of the time, it's an evil. It's very, very bad. The populace, sometimes with facts, sometimes without facts, most of the time without they band together, Those usually a catalyst that sparks a mob rule scenario to hit the streets, so to speak, to force um, lawmakers to act on a cause. Um, and the mob rule mentality never thinks about all the outcomes. Most uh, bef- bef- before they act, they just act. And most of the time, mob rule, it's for the selfish desires of that mob rule. If it's persecuting prophets of God, you know, such as the Joseph Smith Jr. back in the 19th century. If it's against certain races, if it's for Medicaid expansion, like we saw 2 years ago, the promotion of socialism, mob rule 99% of the time, if not a higher percent, does not work. Yes, an informed electorate, yes, absolutely. But a mob rule scenario never works. And I want an informed electorate to vote and toss the bums out of office. That is why I'm asking you today the solution to drain the Utah swamp, to help get me elected, as well as so many House of Representatives and state senators elected, is to flood the March caucuses, the March Republican caucuses this year. Go to voteutah.gov. I'll repeat that website again, voteutah.gov. It's the main website for the state of Utah elections. They typically have locations of where you can go to participate in your local Republican caucus. Tell your friends, tell your family, go door to door if you need to. Get as many people as you can there to make sure the swamp does not hijack the caucuses. We take back the caucuses. We elect our representatives to go forth and elect myself and a whole host of others seeking to drain the Utah swamp. Those delegates goes on to the convention to do this. From the convention goes into the primary. And because we have SB 54, we have a number of swamp critters, dirty, stinking, rot, dirty, stinking swamp critters, Greg Hughes, Spencer Cox, you name it. The biggest swamp rot of them all, John Huntsman Jr. All of them need to be defeated. I'm the only conservative with solutions in this race. Everyone needs to be defeated. And those 5 or 6, maybe more, that seek to completely bypass the caucus convention system, meaning they go directly into the Republican primary in June. So once I win the caucus and the convention level, I need your help yet again in true grassroots fashion. Tell your friends, neighbors, business associates, door to door if you must, email, social media, you name it. Spread the message from the tops of the mountains that we have actual solutions, that knows the Constitution, that has a backbone to drain the Utah swamp, and that has the solutions to, to put into place to get to for Utah to be the shining city on the hill yet again. And then in the general election, because I guarantee you the Utah swamp, they'll get behind the Democrat instead of the party choice myself. So this effort is more than just the caucus convention level. It's a fight, and it takes all of us with skin in the game to do whatever we must with emails, social media, friends and neighbors, door to door, business partners, customers, to flood the Republican caucuses, to show up for our delegates and precinct chairs to show up at convention, like myself and so many others seeking to drain the Utah swamp. For everyone to do their part in the primary and in the general election. And together we will drain the Utah swamp, and together we will be a very prosperous state once again, and to be the shining city on the hill. Once again, please share this video as many times as you can. Visit the website, draintheutahswamp.com, draintheutahswamp.com, draintheutahswamp.com. Donate at draintheutahswamp.com. Volunteers, shoot us an email and offer up your services to help. Or just help doing the things that I asked for in this video. Thank you for your time, and I'm signing off again. Till next time.